to come back to it. And then just, yeah, if you have other questions, just let me know. So for the insulin questions, what they're going to ask you to do is to be able to read what's called a sliding scale. And they're going to give you the patient's blood sugar, and you're going to need to know what to administer based off of that. And they're going to give you ranges, and every table is a little bit different. And then they might even ask you to mark on a syringe. So in this example, it tells you, first of all, you have this Humulin R. It gives you some blood glucose levels, and then it tells you the regular insulin. Now, the thing that, especially at Boyce, that where you're going to get hung up on and get trapped or get not sure what to put, it's going to say how much insulin should be administered, and then you need to know what the unit measurement is for insulin. You're going to be conditioned that you're going to want to put milliliters for everything, including the fact that you can go here and see, oh, my available is 100 units per milliliter. But there's two things you need to know. First thing is insulin is typically dosed and administered in units. So we don't convert units of insulin to milliliters of insulin. When a diabetic is receiving insulin, they're setting it in based off of units. So they don't do milliliters. And I don't know if that's just because it's standardized and it keeps things simple for the diabetic that's at home having to do these, so they don't have to sit there and think like, oh, okay, I need 0.3 milliliters. They just know they need 3 units, and they set their either their syringe or the way that it's dosed out. The other trick is when you look at the syringe, even though it's hard to read this, the syringe is available as a unit syringe. Okay. And one of the ways you would know that is, let's say you got that 315 as the blood glucose. That number correlates with 8 units. And let's just say by chance you decided, or you forgot that, that's the answer. And you don't need to do anything more math wise. Let's say you took 8 divided by 100. Now you have 0.08 milliliters, and it's asking you to mark on the syringe. There is no 0.08 milliliters on this syringe. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on up units. So to answer this question, you just say, it's 315 is their blood glucose. The sliding scale says to administer 8 units. So how much insulin would you administer? You would administer 8 units. Apologize, it's supposed to be number 8. And you would just shade the 8 units on your syringe. So here's 6, 7, 8. And you just mark your syringe. Oops, I didn't know that was going to happen. There we go. You know what? I just realized I'm not even sharing the right screen. I apologize.
I was wondering if it was my internet.
You're like, he's going crazy. All right. So coming back, here's the this is the label. Like I said, it says 100 units per milliliter, but you don't need to do anything with that information. Insulin is delivered in units. The order is 315, which fits in this range here. So it's 8 units is what you're administering. And then you would just shade the dose. So again, it helps if I just clearing out my bad marks here. And I want to see if I can get this to line up. And I usually just fill this in. I just want to make sure you can mark your syringe. So sometimes they'll just ask you to draw an arrow. Sometimes they'll have you fill it in. But that's how you would answer the insulin question.
Okay, I also wanted to ask, I get confused when we do not round the result that we find.
It's a good question. So give me just 1 second. Okay. So when it comes to rounding, that's actually in your blueprint. And I just want to just kind of show you, and then I'll explain and I'll share the blueprint page. So one of the things that they'll tell you in the blueprint is there are some designated rounding rules. The rounding rules state that when you have a number, particularly when you're talking about like milliliters, that's the main thing, but this can actually be applied to several different instances. But if you have a volume greater than 1 milliliter, but it has decimals associated with it, then you do want to round to the nearest tenth. So, like in the example that the blueprint gives you, it says 1.25 milliliters would be rounded to 1.3. And if it's, 4 or fewer, you would leave it at 1.2. Now, saying that, when you convert pounds to kilograms, you're going to sometimes get a number that has a repeating decimal. In that instance, you also want to round that number to the nearest tenth. So in your basic unit conversions, when you're going from like, let's say you have like 117 pounds and you convert that to kilograms, so you divide by 2.2, and I'm just going to plug that into my calculator as I'm talking about it. So 117 divided by 2.2, and you're gonna get 53.18181818, and it just keeps going on and on. That's your indication that you should round that number. And based off of this rule, as far as rounding is concerned, even though it specifically talks about milliliters, you should round that number to the nearest tenth. So 53.2. If you have a number that's less than one, like this point, like 969 or 0.963, then you would just round to the nearest hundredth place when applicable. Now, when you see something, a number that's like 0.99 or something like that, it's one. It was just a calculator like kind of discrepancy. So a lot of times you won't have to do too much thinking about that aspect. But if you get an answer and let's say it's 0.3 or 0.35 milliliters, then you leave that alone. That's your answer. And sometimes you can even see that a syringe will allow you to measure to that indicator. The only time that you really don't want to round is when you're doing like your basic metric to metric conversions, meaning if I go from grams to milligrams, or if I go from micrograms to milligrams, or milliliters to liters, I don't want to round those answers. I want to keep it in, because all I did was move the decimal, right? I just moved some spaces. So if you have a question that says, I have 1,275 milligrams, and I want to convert that to, I'm sorry, micrograms, 1,275 micrograms, and I want to convert that to milligrams. When you do that conversion, your answer comes out to 1.275 milligrams. That's your answer. Don't round it to the nearest tenth. Don't round it to the nearest hundredth. Leave it as 1.275. Is that helpful?
Yes.
Okay, good. And I will also add that it's not as easy as just, that there's like a hard set rule and you do this and you don't do that. You kind of get a feel for when you round, when you don't round. But the big one is you typically don't round if you are converting the metric system to the another metric system unit.
Okay, I think I got it now. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, and like I said, if you have other questions, I will still meet at the times and I'll come in. And if there's a couple questions that you have and you can't be here, or if you have like an ATI question or something that might be relative, just email me and I'll make sure I cover it so that way and then I'll post it up on I'll upload it to YouTube, and then I'll put it in the 110 review because I'm sure other students will be interested in in that as well. So
Okay, yeah, I'm planning to do some practice questions, and if there's anything that I don't get, I will be emailing you.
perfect. Sounds good.
Okay.
All right. Well, good luck with reviewing and I think I'm back on with you guys next week, Wednesday, um, after or at the 2:15 again. So I'll be here. Also I'm meeting with 110 Allegheny students at 1:30, and you're always welcome to join on that if that's a better time for you. So
Okay, thanks.
you're welcome.
Have a good one.
Thanks. You too. Take care.